So if I appear to be a little bit sunburnt in this video, it's because I've been sunburnt. I live in Florida, it's summertime, it's hot out, and I had to be outside the other day doing a few things for a few hours, so I got a little bit crispy. It's a little problematic, but it's not that big a deal. But I tell you who doesn't have a problem with getting sunburn? Billy Dilley, because he's spending his summer in a subterranean world. Ha! Segway! Billy Dilley's Super-Duper Subterranean Summer. Wow, that is one of the longest and weirdest titles I have seen in a while. So this is a new show on Disney, and in a weird move, they decided to show all 13 episodes of the series over the course of 13 days straight. Wow, they must have been real eager to get this one out. And I keep forgetting this was made by Disney every time I look at the show. It looks like something that you'd see on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. And to be honest, I wasn't really that interested in checking it out until I found out it was created by Aaron Springer. Aaron Springer was a major player in a lot of shows like SpongeBob, Dexter's Lab, Billy and Mandy. He worked on Samurai Jack and Gravity Falls and Wander Over Yonder, just to name a few. He was also the creator of Korgoth the Barbarian, which was a pilot that Adult Swim aired a few years ago. And after hearing about all this, I started to feel a little bit better, and I decided to give the show a chance. So the show's about a group of kids whose science fair project goes wrong, and it sends them to the center of the Earth, where they end up in a prehistoric subterranean world where they go on all these weird, crazy adventures. So the main characters are Billy, who's actually voiced by Aaron Springer, and he seems like kind of a weird character at first, and I think a lot of people are going to be put off by it. But after you get to know him, you find out that he's more of an eccentric science dork. And what I like about him the most is that instead of being freaked out by the situation that they're in, he's actually more fascinated by it. Billy is joined by his two friends. There's Zeke, who is voiced by Tom Kenny, who, ironically, is kind of the Squidward of the group. And while he does call out Billy on a lot of the stuff that he does, he's far, far less surly than Squidward is. In fact, he's more of a slacker, really, and oftentimes he does go along with whatever's going on. And there's Marcia, who's voiced by Katie Wayne. And if you don't know who that is, well, do you remember a few years ago there was a YouTuber named Boxy? Yeah, that's her. She's a voice actor now. Good for her. Also, Billy has a pet rat, and he doesn't say or do much, but he does show up for comedic effect or to be part of a gag or something, and I think he might be my spirit animal. So I really like the style of the show. I'm having a little trouble kind of pinpointing what it keeps reminding me of. I mean, it does look like a lot of other Aaron Springer stuff, but something about it just sticks out to me. I think it reminds me of a lot of like comic strip characters, because a lot of characters have like those close together eyes that kind of join in the middle, and I've seen that in a lot of comic strips. Also, Zeke looks like a character right out of Garfield. You know, I find it interesting that a lot of creators nowadays seem to be getting a lot of inspiration from comic strips. Also, I feel like a lot of inspiration came from stuff like Sid and Marty Krofft, and if you don't know who that is, they created a lot of TV shows in the late 60s and all throughout the 70s. They made like Land of the Lost, H.R. Pufnstuf, Sigmund the Sea Monster, things like that. A lot of their shows involved like puppets and people in elaborate costumes, and they took place in all these weird settings. And I do see a lot of that in this show. Now, I'm going to be honest, the first couple episodes of this show were not that great. I mean, they weren't horrible, but nothing about them really grabbed me. Most of it was just them arriving in the subterranean world and meeting some characters and interacting with some of the creatures and getting into weird comedic situations, and that's all fine. But I don't think the show picked up for me until maybe about episode 4, I think, when we meet this villain character who's voiced by James Arnold Taylor. And man, oh man, James Arnold Taylor does some good work. He's one of the best voice actors out there. And he is hilarious in this. He sounds like a demented version of Obi-Wan Kenobi from Clone Wars. And I think right about this time is when I started to kind of like the show. And I think a lot of the fun parts of the show come from when they meet weird characters. Like, they meet this guy who's obviously supposed to be a parody of He-Man. And I love the fact that they made this character kind of a scam artist. And how he mooches off of people and he lives in their houses and eats their food and everything. And I thought that was really funny. Speaking of references, and I kind of have to go on a bit of a tangent here, but there was an episode where Billy met this creature that looked like this green octopus with a big pink brain and it had a beak. And I remember seeing this episode and seeing that creature and thinking to myself, that thing looks familiar. And I couldn't quite put my finger on where I've seen it before. And I kept thinking about it, and then suddenly it hit me. I had that as a toy when I was a kid. Yeah, it was this weird bendable rubber thing that I had, and for years and years I didn't know where it came from. And a while back I found out that it was part of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons action figure line that came out in the 80s. And it was a creature called the Deadly Grell. And I saw that and I was like, I can't believe they made a character based on the figure. What I find interesting though is I looked up official artwork of the Deadly Grell from the D&D games and it looks very different. So obviously they took the design of the toy and put it into the show. So I'm going to wager a guess and say somebody on staff, possibly Aaron Springer, had that Deadly Grell toy and decided to use that design for the show and make it a fun little reference. And if that's the case, then as a toy collector and a child of the 80s, respect, man. Respect. So I actually think I enjoyed this show a lot more than I thought I would. It certainly picked up after a while, that's for sure. Now, there is a lot of gross out humor and weird designs and a lot of random stuff that happens in it, and I think it's going to put a lot of people off, but I'd say give this show a little bit of a chance because there's a lot about it to like. A lot of the designs are very interesting. I like Billy as a character. A lot of people I've heard compared him to Clarence, and I've defended Clarence before, and I'll keep defending it. I do like that kind of character, like sort of free-spirited, you know, open to new things type of character, especially with Billy because he's really into science, and I do like characters that are pro-science. I feel like this show is kind of what Future Worm should have been. It's done a lot better, but I would say if the show does put you off a little bit, maybe skip ahead to episode 4 or so and see where it goes from there. What I am interested to know is if they're going to do anything else with this show. Like I said before, they showed all 13 episodes over the course of 13 days straight, which is a very unusual move for Disney. Maybe they're kind of taking a page from Netflix, and how Netflix always puts out entire series all at once and people can binge them. But the thing is, the final episode of this season, I guess, it felt like a series finale. And it makes me wonder if this is all we're going to get of the show. I mean, it seems fine for what it is. I guess it's not that big a deal. But the whole situation just seems a bit odd to me. I'm sure there's a reason, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people are talking about this show. There's not a whole lot of information of it out there. So I really don't know. I'm going to have to maybe look this up later. But if you can find it, I'd say at least give it a shot. It's got a lot of talented people working on it, and like I said, there's a lot to like about it. And hopefully it gets a little bit more attention. But for now, that's all I got for Billy Dilley's Super-Duper Subterranean Summer. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of it. My name is Rob, and have a wonderful day.